Ketchum, and you're listening to Silph Radio.
This is Silph Radio, the premier Pokemon-centered podcast for adults. That's mature listeners only, as the world is a controversial place, and it's not my job to prepare your children with the context necessary to grapple with it. We have no connection to anybody associated with the Pokemon franchise in any official capacity. This is a show made by Pokemon fans for Pokemon fans. Every episode, we take an exhaustive look at a different ultra-specific Poke topic, discussing its creative inspiration, its role in continuity, and its place in the fans' hearts. I am your host, the long-winded Nathan Capisser, and joining me today, all the way from the managerial offices of the Amusement Sparks podcast, is our good friend, Mr. Andrew Spohn.
Hey, everybody. Good to be here. This is a great podcast. You're in for a treat.
Thanks, man. I appreciate it. You are in for a treat. You run a great podcast yourself. How are things going over there?
Great. So yeah, it's a theme park design show, and every episode's a new theme park, which is really cool. I've just kind of switched formats, which is relieving for me as a person who has to edit all this stuff. Normally, every 6th episode, we do like a kind of retrospective. We do remodels and renovations of the last 5 parks, and we're scrapping that idea because it's too much work. Instead, it's just all new episodes. Every episode will have a new theme park. So. Woo! It's exciting.
Yeah, that's awesome.
It's a cool little change of pace. Yeah,
it is.
So I've got it. The next episode is on BioShock. So
oh God,
it's a pretty cool atmospheric.
That would be
really interesting series.
I don't even play BioShock, but I'm obviously familiar with the imagery and whatnot, and I would go to a fucking BioShock park.
Dude, the lore is so fascinating. It's like some of the themes are a little heavy-handed, but they really get nuanced in their exploration of how these big political ideas like intersect, and which sounds super boring, I know, but like the imagery, like you were saying, is incredible. All the creatures, like the big daddies and the little sisters and all that stuff is so eerie and like defined, and it totally feels like a real place. It's awesome.
Yeah, the atmosphere and environment. Man.
Yeah, buddy.
They just released Jurassic World Evolution, which is like, I don't know if you've seen anything, but it's like the best like simulated like park simulator they've made for Jurassic Park. Between the graphics, the animal behavior, it looks phenomenal, and I'm so excited. And man, I'm surprised they haven't done that as a side game. That would be a great side game for Pokemon. Like, man, Pokemon theme park builder.
Yeah, that'd be so fun. I really like that idea. Or even just like a town simulator, you know, like setting up where's your Pokemart gonna go, where's your Pokemon Center gonna go. Maybe you have to like hire. That'd be pretty cool. Like maybe you work for the Pokemon League.
I want to have you back on the show to talk about like a Pokemon sim game. Yeah.
Okay.
That's
kind of
wow. That's definitely a good thing.
It could connect with the Pokemon MMO that we worked on. Like some of that was kind of sim-ish.
Yeah, but more. Dude, this would be more of a specifically like.
Yeah.
Sure, maybe you could have interactive elements, but you know, like well, let's save it.
Sure.
We got a big podcast for a little topic today, but there was something I wanted to ask you leading in. Something I've been curious about. A lot of the guest hosts. We've covered a lot of water topics on this podcast, and I'm curious if you have a favorite type, and if I may guess, I hate to steal the reveal from you if it is, but is it the water type?
It is water type. Yeah, I've always felt some connection with that. I don't know. I think it's tied in with like the way that imagination works when you're young. Like when I first played the Pokemon games, pretty low quality pixel art. Like, I love those original images, but some of them do not really look like the Pokemon as we currently depict them. But anyway, it was like, those captured my imagination so much. The simplicity of the art style, simplicity of the whole game, really. It's pretty straightforward storytelling, and it allows a lot of room for your imagination to go.
Yeah.
And I don't know, the water type...
If I can distract from your explanation for a second, just because it's so relevant to that...
Yeah,
I love that because of the way it fosters your imagination. I think that was my biggest problem with the reveal of Let's Go Pikachu and Let's Go Eevee is that we've been so hyped for a next-gen console Pokemon game that to see one come out, and I'm not just being a hater. This looks like it is the best side game ever made, so that is saying a lot. But I thought when I first saw the trailer that it was the next core series game.
Right, main series, yeah.
But either way, to see Kanto fully realized in a 3D environment and it's still a 2D game is a little underwhelming because it basically just looks like the 3DS games with slightly better graphics, which is... That's my major complaint with the 3DS games is it's starting to look a little too linear, like and fake, like just rows of trees. And in the original games with the limited animation and the limited graphics, it allowed your imagination to fill in the environments and what this town and forest actually looked like. We know that the trees in Viridian Forest aren't planted in singular rows.
You're right. It was totally more in your head. It was way more in your head back then. You're like, I know that trees don't actually look like this, so I'm sure this is just their version of like, a quick little sketch or whatever. So yeah.
Yeah, that becomes more difficult now that it's a 3D game on a next-gen system.
You don't have to imagine what it is because you can see what it is.
Yeah, I don't want to see a Link to the Past. You know what I mean? That's a beautiful game, but if you're when they made 3D Zelda, it wasn't just a Link to the Past with better graphics. It was a jump into the 3D world. Yeah, and that's what
Right. You had to go through the character's eyes and like aim at stuff, and you actually had to like take the role of that character in more direct way.
It's as simple as my roommate was playing Fortnite the other day, and I'm not saying this to hype up Fortnite. I don't want a bunch of Overwatch players flaming me with dislikes. But that's it's a free to play game that like I'm looking at the environment they're walking around and I'm like, guys, that's all I'm asking for. Make Route 1 like this so that I feel like I'm exploring. You don't even have to try really hard. Just don't make it a 2D environment if it's going to be a 3D environment. Anyway, I'm sorry.
I get that, totally. And I could talk a lot about Let's Go Pikachu and Let's Go Eevee, but that's another topic for another time. So what connected me with the water type was my first starter was Squirtle. That I just kind of picked randomly. And I don't know, when you're a kid and you're like swimming around, that's like the one place you're really free to like explore your imagination because you can like basically feel like you're flying or like doing some super cool matrix flips or like pretty much whatever. You can like swim right along the bottom of the water and it kind of feels like you're flying over like a field or whatever. It's basically a really cool place for imagination.
It was a game-changing moment, like being able to surf and visit these areas you couldn't visit, and not only that, but leaving Fuchsia City, and now you've got a whole route that it looks like it's not even bound. Like if you look at it from high enough up, you can tell that it is, but it looks like you're free to make your own decisions of what direction to go.
Totally. The world totally opens up at that point. And, you can even go back to Pallet Town. You're like, oh, yeah, there was water back here that I didn't even know, like... Because the last time you were in Pallet Town, you probably didn't even have, like, an old rod yet. And now you can actually surf.
And how
so cool.
How brilliantly designed is that game to that like it's set up so that now you are back in Pallet Town, so you don't have to go back to explore. It naturally like how Mario naturally introduces you to the elements of what to do next. It naturally sets you up to be like, oh, there's areas I haven't explored back here. Because you have to go through that first route in order to get to the last gym and then the Elite Four. Anyway,
it feels so cool as you're getting better at the game also gives you more shortcuts and like more ways to travel around and show that you're kind of a Pokemon master or whatever by that point.
That's great,
Kinda
though.
cool.
It's fitting. I don't know why, but it's fitting for you to be a water type trainer. I like that.
Thank you.
That said, I'm curious. Here we go. I'm curious. Here's a question. What is your favorite evolution? Is it Vaporeon?
It was when I was a kid. I loved Vaporeon.
No pressure. You don't have to have a favorite.
I'm gonna say, man, it's hard to say. I usually just leave it as Eevee, which bothers a lot of people.
No, that's fair.
I like the blank canvas nature of an Eevee. It's like this thing could become anything, and it's gonna stay the way it is. It's kind of I don't know. It's poetic.
Well, this one I do demand an answer to.
Okay, yes, sir.
No pressure for it to be a definitive answer, but what upcoming evolution that hasn't been done yet are you most eagerly anticipating?
That is an awesome question. I think Dragon would be pretty sweet. I don't know biologically if that makes any sense.
Yeah, it would be dope, though.
It'd be really cool, man. Or it could be. It could also look really dumb, but I don't think they would design a dumb-looking Pokemon on purpose. I don't know.
I give you one Animon. Anyway.
I think Dragon would be pretty sweet. How about yourself? Have you answered that question before?
It's Ghost, the Ghost type. I don't know if I've answered it on the show, but...
I do love Ghost type.
And I think that should be the pair. They should offer you Ghost and Dragon in the same game so that you're forced to choose between one or the other. And
that's cool.
Because those are the two, I think, most, like, epic, like, wow, finally, you know?
Yeah, Rock type would be kind of weird. Fighting type would be kind of weird. Yeah, there's some types that don't necessarily need an evolution.
But I think they could do a good one for any type. Like, if you think hard enough, you could come up with a good fighting type. And I mean, me and Jolly a few episodes back brainstormed. We discussed some possibilities for a good bug type evolution, which I think is the most difficult one to rationally come up with.
Oh yeah, I agree. That's really cool. Yeah, the types that are based on like a specific biological structure, like bug type and dragon type. I know dragons aren't real or whatever, but that's what people keep telling me. But still, it is kind of harder to imagine that. It's like imagining a cat giraffe. Because it's like, wait, what?
Yeah, it still has to be like a feline, canine, fox type animal. For the dragon type, man, what if it was more like a Chinese dragon?
Yeah, that's a cool look.
Yeah, because those are already kind of mammalian.
Wow. Yeah, you're right.
You could give it the scales and the mane and the whisker.
The like floating whisker things. Yeah, that's pretty cool. It would just get really long, maybe.
Oh, that puts the ghost type in a run for it. Gives it a run for its money. I could end up choosing the dragon type if they did something like that.
We'll see what it looks like. Yeah, when it comes out.
Ooh.
Yeah, I do really like stuff inspired by kind of like the Chinese dragon look. Like the red Dragon Zord from Power Rangers, man, that thing.
Yeah.
It's one of the coolest looking Zords of all time.
Steel and
Pretty
dragon
sick.
type. All right. Oh man, like 50, 60 years from now, they'll be doing dual type evolutions. That'll be cool.
Or they'll come up with a new Pokemon that's like Eevee, you know, like something that is normal type by default, but then branches off into these other paths.
Ooh, yeah, specifically just dual type evolutions. That'd be cool.
Ooh, that's nice. I like that. Oh, that's cool, man. That's probably what's around the corner. Because, I mean, evolutions are always popular, which is really interesting. Every generation, you see new plushies of each single new one. They haven't, like, done a dud yet, I don't think.
I love Eevee. All right.
Yeah.
So, moving forward, today, we're discussing an ancient prehistoric Pokemon which lived alongside Omastar and Kabutops. This is the first prehistoric Pokemon we've discussed. We've yet to discuss an extinct Pokemon. That's not what we're discussing today. This Pokemon still exists in the world today. That's right. We're talking number 90, Shellder.
Woo!
And number 91, Cloyster, its evolution.
Woo!
Woo! It's a soft-bodied creature which takes shelter in a shell, hence its name, Shellder.
Yeah, it's a pretty straightforward name. But yeah, these are both considered bivalve Pokemon because they have a shell that's like hinged.
Yeah.
That's like a real biological thing.
I mean, all you have to imagine is a clam. I find it really hard to believe. I can suspend my disbelief pretty far on the Pokemon podcast, but I can't suspend it so far as to believe that you guys listening have never seen a Shellder and can't bring forth
Right.
the image. But then again, we may have some young listeners who sometimes it's hard for me to remember the newer ones, so maybe it is harder to remember the older ones. So
I think so.
Benefit of the doubt.
It's a cool Pokemon, but it's not like it was on any of the covers of the games, or Ash doesn't really use one prominently, so it's possible you've never seen one.
Yeah, picture a clam.
Yeah, it's a clam.
A clam, to describe what a bivalve is, just picture a clam. It's hinged 2 doors. So, like, imagine 2 doors hinged to each other. That's what bivalve means.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Shelder's got this, like, pretty iconic long tongue hanging out. So it just looks like a cool 90s clam guy.
Yeah. If he was doing the bullhorns. That'd be great. It's the Rolling Stones Pokemon. Man, that would be a dope T-shirt. A Shellder in imitation
of the
Rolling Stones logo. That would be a great...
That's pretty cute.
That's a great line of T-shirts. We actually, where I work recently, we had T-shirts which were based on classic Disney properties, but they were all fashioned in classic rock tee designs.
That's pretty sweet.
Yeah, so there's like a Beast one that looked like an Ozzy Osbourne shirt.
Wow.
There was a Little Mermaid one, I think, that looked like Def Leppard or Slayer or something. It was really cool. And that would be great for Pokemon to do sort of the same thing. Oh, man.
Yeah, there's a lot of opportunities there. That's really cool.
If this wasn't the beginning of the podcast and we weren't already like... I would want to take a detour to brainstorm some. But anyway.
Dude, totally. We could do that as a separate episode. I have so many Pokemon t-shirt ideas from over the years.
Yeah, it's got a long tongue, and that's really interesting because real-life clams, they don't have a tongue, but they have this sort of like... a leg. It's called a leg, and it looks like a tongue because a clam looks like a little mouth,
To us, humans.
Yeah, it can stick this leg out. So like, wait, I'm sorry. A foot, that's what it's called. It's called a foot, and it looks like a little pink tongue, and that's how they like get themselves around. And it actually says in the Pokedex that the clam buries itself while it sleeps. It leaves its tongue sticking out, which is sort of what clams do with their foots, so it's obviously intentional.
Yeah.
And it's again, speaks to the brilliance of these designs.
So true.
I think that's actually a cool opportunity to sort of muse on the in-universe biology of this creature. I feel like its tongue, they also say that like its tongue is always sticking out of the shell. And if you yank on its tongue, it really like hurts them or shocks them open.
That's interesting.
Yeah. And
yeah,
the way that clams... they don't have eyes like Shellder does, but they have like photoreceptors, real life clams, and if it can sense a change in the light. So like if a manta ray flies over it and casts a shadow, flies over it, swims over it, and casts a shadow, it will react to this and tightly close its shell to protect itself.
Wow.
So in the way that it leaves its tongue out, and if you pull on its tongue, it has a real visceral reaction. I think its tongue must be very, like, super sensitive to, like, even when it's asleep, its tongue is able to sense slight vibrations in the ocean floor and react to, like, close the shell and protect itself or wake up the creature or something like that.
That makes a lot of sense. Because, I mean, it doesn't have any arms or legs or anything. It's like, if you've got a long tongue like that, you're going to learn how to use it, I think.
Yeah.
Although, a lot of Pokemon designs kind of take these kind of very different kind of alien-feeling types of biology on Earth, and they're like, yeah, but what if we give it, like, eyes and a cute little tongue, and now we can relate to it a little easier. It's like the smiley face version of a clam.
Yeah.
Instead of a realistic clam. Yeah, it's easier to connect to.
Because clams are pretty alien and horrifying when you get right down to it. It's weird. Ooh.
It's weird.
It is. Like, they're...
yeah, man.
Everything in the deep ocean is, I guess, because it is an alien world.
Yes. It's like the last frontier, too. It's like we really haven't been to the bottom of our own oceans on this planet yet, which is kind of scary. Like we don't know what's down there, honestly.
It's very Lovecraftian, and I guess that's why H.P. Lovecraft had a lot of his creatures in the deep ocean.
I mean, Relay is still down there.
It is. You're right.
We haven't even found it yet. And Atlantis. It's crazy. Can't wait for those news articles to break.
I'm okay for Atlantis to come back. Let's keep relay
Yeah.
where it is.
Right. Hard to pronounce with a human tongue.
Oh, talk about Lovecraftian. Like, if you see, like, there's a reason clams are afraid and close their shells so tightly. For one, like, cloysters are like a giant clam, but shelders are these tiny little baby clams. And the actual real-life giant clam is a pretty badass defensive creature. And we'll talk more when we get to cloyster, but the baby versions of them are super, super tiny and vulnerable. Like, they're like the size of a penny, and their shells are barely formed. So, and they have to live like 2 or 3 years before they can even defend themselves at all. So it's natural that they'd be afraid. Not only that, but the predators, the way that they talk about Lovecraftian, like, oh my God, like a lot of sea creatures will actually like eject their fucking stomachs into the shell of the clam and then digest the clam inside its own body, in its own shell.
Whoa. Oh my God.
And then suck their stomach back into their body. So like every time you find a nice smooth clam shell on the beach and you're like, oh, this one's cute, it doesn't have all that gross like muscly body inside. Just know that you're holding the legacy of like a Lovecraftian drama which has been playing out over and over again for longer than humans have been around.
Whoa, dude, that's awesome. You should put that on a t-shirt at your little t-shirt shop in Myrtle Beach.
It would probably sell to our clientele. Just that would be a great band tee. But then it is
the shells that they have. Even the Shellder, the shell is supposedly harder than diamond.
Yeah.
So I think the Pokemon version of a little baby clam is much more well defended than the real life one, or at least that's what we want to tell the kids, because it's a pretty graphic sight knowing that Shelders are just getting like melted down inside their own shell and consumed that way and washing up on shore.
Naturally, it would have to be because it exists in the Pokemon universe. I think even human biology must be more hardy and like resistant. But dude, I mean, what clams still have to deal with, even if it's not dealing with like Lovecraftian predators, like otters and shit will pick up rocks in their little cute little ottery hands and just smash the shells open, or pick up the shells themselves and smash them against rocks. And not only otters, but like birds will pick up shells in their beaks, drop it on a rock, pick it up again, drop it on a rock, rinse, repeat over and over and over again until the shell breaks open. Like it's hard out there for a clam.
It really is. Yeah, and they're so vulnerable. They can do nothing defensively. Shellder at least has some cool like special moves it can use. It can at least clamp down on stuff or use icicle spear on those birds. But real life clams are just, well, you'll either drop me back in the water or I'm gonna die soon. So I have to accept it.
Which is why one of its abilities is shell armor, which protects from critical hits. It's got armor, and Skill Link, which increases the frequency of multi-strike moves. These come into play more when it gets older, but of course they're present in its biology from a young age. But again, a Shellder is not able to defend itself as well when it's young, so it has to evolve. Yeah. And built into Pokemon's life cycle, as we keep talking about, is this partnership with humans that helps them to evolve, which is why you're more likely to find Shellder, lots and lots of Shellder, than you will Cloyster.
Yeah.
It all ties together. This is all going to come full circle later in the podcast.
Totally. And like you said, with the like interaction with humans, like you were saying, there's some things that we kind of explore scientifically, like we do this to each other, like we poke our friend in the eye and kind of see what happens. But like on this, if you have a friend who's a Shellder, you might pull their tongue. No, but like when you're a kid, when you're like a baby or whatever, you're a toddler.
Oh, I wanna.
I mean, yeah, sure, we do get into like Three Stooges excitement once in a while, but there's just kind of this natural thing between humans' curiosity and like learning more about the world. It's like, you know what, I have a Shellder, it has a long tongue, I'll pull in the tongue and see what happens.
God damn it, Ash.
I'm going to read a quote from the Sun Pokedex. It says, "In days gone by, people use the shells to make shields. So, like, that makes sense. If you're, like, you know, a warrior civilization or whatever, and you need a shield, and there's a shield washing up on the beach, like, oh, okay, use it as a shield. I get it. So, like, there's certain things, like, humans will discover about the world over time, which is kind of interesting. And some of them are nice, like reusing discarded carcasses for a good cause. And some of them are kind of mean, like yanking on an animal's tongue to see what happens. And we'll get more into that with Cloyster as well, actually.
Yeah, that is interesting. Do you know what Pokedex entry, what game that came from about them using the shields?
That was from Sun.
From Sun. Yeah, wow, you're right, because they made some really interesting developments in the mythology of this Pokemon in particular.
Huh. With Sun, you mean?
Within Sun and Moon and Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon with Shellder and Cloyster. Yeah, that's great. We will come back to that. This is going to be one of those circular podcasts.
Cool.
It is a really weird Pokemon. It swims, but this is not something that clams do, but it does follow that in the heightened reality of the Pokemon universe that they would. It swims by facing backwards and then opening and closing its shell, which is a surprisingly fast and efficient way for it to, like, get around in the water.
I've got another little tidbit about their biology. You know how, like, in the real world, clams, if they get, like, sand or whatever stuck in them and it kind of stays there long enough, it eventually can, like, turn into a pearl?
Of course.
In one of the Pokedex entries, I don't remember what game it was from, it said that sand trapped within a Shellder mixes with its body fluids and eventually forms a pearl, and that's why, like, when you catch them, they are often holding either a small pearl or a large pearl. But it just kind of grossed me out that it said it mixes with the body fluids. I'm like, you didn't have to say those words. You could have just said sand trapped in there eventually becomes a pearl. It's much more, like, happy that way, but it mixes with its body fluids. Like, I don't know if I want to think about what kind of body fluids are inside of a Shellder. There's something in there, and it helps process pearls.
I'm sorry to do this to you, but the full circle is going to come around later, and we're going to have to.
Oh, boy.
Oh, boy, indeed.
Oh, boy.
Or, oh, girl. We'll see.
Sure.
This is an inclusive podcast. Yeah, it is a really, really interesting, curious Pokemon.
Okay, so technically there are multiple different forms of Shellder, which is verbiage that maybe I don't totally agree with, but that seems to be the way that they describe it, because this magical thing can happen when a mommy and a daddy love each other very much. When a Slowpoke and a Shellder are in the same place at the same time in the anime and the manga. Like, let's say the Shellder's swimming around in the water or whatever, and the Slowpoke has its tail in the water. The Shellder will, like, bite onto it. It doesn't currently have teeth, which I kind of realized, but it turns into this other form of Shellder, which is very spiky and kind of has one of those kind of cone-shaped shells and, like, an angry-looking face, and suddenly its eyes are on the shell itself. It's kind of a weird thing. It attaches to the Slowpoke's tail, which kind of tilts the Slowpoke back, and it becomes a Slowbro.
Yeah. Well, it's magical, but it's not really magical. It's all the result of the midichlorians in its bloodstream, which cause it to evolve. Right? No midichlorians, but yeah, it evolves. Like, well, it's actually really interesting because, yes, it's a Shellder, but these are the technicalities of categorization. What is it? It is a configuration of atoms and molecules and energies and coinciding conditions that form a temporary being in time-space. I'm sorry if I'm getting a little too out there, but the thing is, I don't know where to draw those lines because, like, sure,
right.
It is a Shellder because it never evolved into a Cloyster. And yes, it is a Shellder clamping onto a Slowpoke's tail because what else can you call it? Well, you call it a Slowbro, and that's what it is. People look at a Slowbro
right.
and they tend to think of the pink thing as the Slowbro, and it's got a Shellder on its tail. No, the pink thing is the Slowpoke, the gray thing is the Shellder. But neither of them, they're no longer a Slowpoke, a Slowpoke, or a Shellder. They are delicious, I hear.
Yeah, their tails. I mean, Shellder's got the right idea.
Yeah, well, apparently, because again, in Sun and Moon, it says that we're going to talk more about this in Cloyster, but Sun and Moon sort of establishes that I think the Shellder is sort of trying to eat the Slowpoke shell. It's not just, I want to go evolve. It's more like, I'm going to try to eat it, and then something happens, and they evolved together. We're gonna talk more in depth about this evolution. We're not gonna get into the biology because guess what, guys? That's next episode. We're gonna do a whole episode about the slowpoke family. But we obviously can't not talk about it. But it bugs me. People always used to say that's not a Shellder. That's not a Shellder on its tail. That's something else. And that would always bug me because I'd be like, well, yes, you're right. It is. It's a Slowbro. They evolved together. It's not, if you're going to call the pink thing a Slowbro, you have to call the gray thing a Slowbro as well because that's what they are now. But I get that it's also a Shellder in the sense that it's a Slowpoke. It's a linguistic convention. So depending on the context of the sentence, it's either a Shellder or it's a Slowbro.
Wow, that's a cool point. But what about this? What if the pink thing dies?
Oh, no, I don't want to think about that.
I'm just saying what if. It dies of... Wait, no, it was a serial killer, okay? It deserved it. And so the pink thing dies. The Slowbro, the gray part of the Slowbro, falls in the water, and now it goes and lives on the bottom of the ocean. Is it now considered a Shellder, or would it die instantly when it's
man.
I don't know, what do you even call that? Is it a symbiotic relationship? I guess.
It is. I wonder if it would die. I mean, I imagine it. I don't think it would die instantly, but maybe it would. Maybe it's...
I don't know.
Because its nervous systems do sort of maybe get linked, maybe not. I mean, I
think so.
I would think so. And either way, its aura is definitely linked, like probably closer than it is with the fucking trainer. And if blacking out can happen between a trainer and their Pokemon. Wow. So like... That is really interesting. I don't know. But maybe not. I imagine...
I've seen a picture of that Shellder form by itself, and I don't know if that was something that someone photoshopped or drew themselves or whatever, but I was like, how did this thing come to be on its own? Because the evolution happens when that bite occurs, so I don't know why it would ever come off.
Well, I don't
know.
I'm sure you're familiar by now with the Space World leaks. Oh my God.
I don't know.
Wait, are you serious?
Tell me.
Oh my God, are you serious? You don't know?
I think I'm being serious,
The Gold and Silver demo.
No, I haven't heard of this.
Oh my God.
Your face.
This is so fun. Oh my God, I get to be the one to blow your mind.
Break the news.
Oh
yeah,
my
let's
God.
hear it.
Dude.
I'm so ready.
And I know you're a faithful listener, but again, the episode hasn't been edited. Me and Jolly just did a whole episode. Dude, Let's Go Pikachu, Let's Go Eevee was not the biggest news in the Pokemon world to break that week.
Wow.
Do you know about like Hananguma and Kurusu, the original starters for Gold and Silver, the little fire bear?
Those names sound... Yeah. I've seen those.
And the little white
concept
seal?
art or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah, that was from Nintendo Space World 97. That's Nintendo's E3.
Right.
Nintendo fucking... That demo leaked a few weeks ago, and it was data mined, and there's like 60, 70 never-before-released Pokemon in it.
Whoa.
Yeah, including the fucking Shellder version. Yeah.
Whoa.
Yeah.
That is awesome. Wow, I'm so looking that up after this.
Dude,
That
I'm
is
so
awesome.
happy to be able to be the person to... That's why I got so excited, because like it's huge, dude. You're going to have a world of fun looking at this. Like,
oh, I'm so excited.
Yeah, evolutions.
And I'm excited to hear that episode,
wow,
too.
so you didn't even get the Animon joke that I made earlier. That's Ditto's evolution.
Oh, what?
Yup. Yeah.
Dude.
I'm not gonna spoil anything else, but that's how deep this is. I'll spoil a few things. I'll spoil one other thing. There's like a baby Growlithe. Like, dude, there's a lot of... Just to give you an idea of the scope of like...
I love the art style. Just scrolling through this, like, I'm so pumped.
And make sure you find, like... I can send you links, but so you can see certain ones you might not realize what they are until you read what they are, and like the different types of some of them and the different evolutions some of them are, and like...
Oh, I'm so excited.
Yeah.
That's so great. What a tasty morsel. I'm pumped.
So fucking cool. Anyway, I just talked about this for like 3 hours. So let's get back to Shellder or Slowbro, or you've got as a trainer, you have two options if you want to evolve your Shellder. You can either bond it with the Slowpoke and make a Slowbro, or you can evolve it into, well, I guess 3 options. Or you can bond it with a Slowpoke and make a Slowking. Or, and you need the King's Rock for that. Again, we'll talk next week on that. Or you can use a Water Stone on it and evolve it into a Cloyster.
Yay.
Yahoo! Cloyster is a very, very interesting Pokemon, and for many, many, many reasons. And I'm really excited to talk about Cloyster.
Yes, it's a beautiful Pokemon. It's one of the coolest Ice-type Pokemon. Wait, it's one of the only Ice-type Pokemon, really, from... I mean, it's not 100% ice. It's water and ice. But,
yeah.
I don't know. I always felt a cool connection with the Ice-type Pokemon back in, like, Red and Blue era.
What else is there in general? There's Lapras. There's Lapras,
yeah,
Articuno,
Lapras.
Jinx.
Yep.
That's all I can
And there's
think
other Pokemon who can use some Ice-type moves, but the official typing, I think that might be it.
Yeah, it is. I feel like it's still sort of an underserved type, although there definitely have been a lot of additions. Ice is a cool type, often overlooked.
It is. My favorite attack animation is Blizzard from Red and Blue. I don't know. For some reason, I just love the aesthetics of that. That animation is really cool.
That's a great move to try to imagine in the real world. It's freezing the water particles in the air around it and surging them forward to like send like snow and freezing winds and ice and hail and sleet at you and your Pokemon. Like, because you're standing behind your Pokemon, I'd imagine it's gonna hit you too.
Right.
Oh man,
it's gonna be uncomfortable. Yeah, that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
And speaking of that, like imagining things in the real world. So, just for a second, when you think about the Slowpoke with the Shellder binding onto it, that makes sense in the kind of more realistic settings, like imagining it with your in your head, or in the TV show, or in the books. But in the games, you just have a Slowpoke, and it just evolves into a Slowbro. You don't have to have a Shellder anywhere around you.
Yeah, I think that was a little bit of an oversight. That it would have been really cool
if you had to have both in your party or something. That would have been so awesome.
And then I
wish it was like that.
You get a free slot when they evolve. Like, that would be so great.
That'd be cool.
Really
or
would.
maybe you had to be in an area where Shelders live, and it could just happen that naturally there.
Oh.
Like, that's the kind of stuff, if they were starting Pokemon now, if Pokemon was the first Pokemon games were coming out next year, that's something they might consider. But like back in the day with the technology, I don't know if it was possible or a priority where they could have spent another 6 months doing that or something, but it probably wasn't worth it.
Here's a great way it could happen. What if, and don't even try to say this is too much. I'm not saying to you. I'm saying to
too much,
the
dude,
hypothetical hater out there, the hypa-hater.
I hate hypotheticals.
The hypa-hater would be its Pokemon name. So, hypa-thater? All right, anyway. Yeah, it's like an alligator type Pokemon. Anyway, the Inkay evolves by holding your fucking DS upside down. Like, there's a lot of weird ways to evolve your Pokemon. Yeah. What if the way you evolved your Slowpoke or your Shellder would be the vice versa of this? If you had to battle your Slowpoke against a Shellder, a wild Shellder, once the Slowpoke was at least level 20 or something like that.
That's awesome.
Right?
I like that a lot.
Or you battle your Cloyster or your Shellder, excuse me. Or maybe
your
not
Shellder
even
against the
No, yeah, it shouldn't be once it's a certain level. It should just be whenever that happens. You battle and defeat and you don't catch the Pokemon. And then what?
That's awesome.
It's evolving. That would be amazing.
Oh, that's so cool. Oh my gosh. Yeah, that's awesome.
It is.
But yeah, I don't know. That's one of those things that's much more interesting in the lore and in like our headcanon and whatever versus the actual games, where it's like they express the idea through the Pokedex, but they don't actually show it happening. So it's, I don't know, it's kind of a disconnect, I think.
Man, and talking about Blizzard, it's much like Shellder has a branch evolution. You can choose to go two ways with it. There's two ways we can branch this conversation off now. Two things that two directions my mind took. I guess we'll go one quick one. What do you think would be a cool Alolan version of Cloyster? It gains the ice type when it evolves from Shellder, becomes water ice. And I was thinking a cool Alolan form would be like Dark Psychic or Rock Psychic.
Wow. I was picturing like a fire, like a volcano kind of thing. Because it kind of, if it's got like the little projectiles it can shoot out. I don't know, that would just be, it feels like a lot of fire type Pokemon are very kind of volcanic style, and they like, I don't know. It seems like it might fit the kind of design aesthetic a little bit.
It could have little craters with steam coming out, and then like streams of lava sort of coming down its shell, spilling down its shell. That's pretty cool. Yeah.
I like that. And I just like its kind of mischievous face. It kind of, I don't know, it fits in with the kind of fire type attitude.
What if it was ground fire?
That's good. I like that a lot.
It could be rock fire, but ground fire is cool too.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. Let's see what else might fit.
I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. I like that. There are delta species for Shellder and Cloyster. They're fighting type, which is kind of boring, I thought.
Yeah, but
because it's kind of like Ammonite, Amistar. It's like they can be water or fighting in the Pokemon card game.
It could be rock or ground type also, though. So yeah. But what about fairy dragon? No, I'm kidding.
I was thinking dragon, and I was like, wait, that doesn't make any sense. But
just because. So the other thing that my brain started thinking about, because I was bringing up the water particles in the air that it freezes to do blizzard. Mm-hmm. One of the constant debates with water type Pokemon that I've had on this show and in my head with myself is can water types float outside of water? It sounds like a stupid question to people that haven't thought about it, but yes, it is a thing because in all Pokemon media, they are depicted as doing such, with the exception of sometimes the anime. But I feel like the fact that sometimes the anime does already makes it, well, then in all Pokemon media, or sometimes the manga, Right.
Like Goldeen is just going to be flopping around on the ground, but Lapras has to be in the water.
And
even though it can breathe air, clearly.
Yeah,
so
and
weird.
If you say no, it doesn't, well then how do you battle with your Seaking or your Lapras when you're not? Do you have to always have a pool of water? If you're battling Brock, you have to bring a fucking little rubber inflatable pool to the gym?
That's really cute. I like that. Or, I mean, the gyms should just include that. They should all have a little body of water so you can use water types. It's only fair.
That's actually a good point to bring up, but you know
because
what?
It's not just about their powers being increased. Like fire Pokemon might do better if part of the stadium is on fire, but they don't need that to survive. Whereas water Pokemon, just like fish, typically kind of have to have some water around or they're not going to do so good.
Well, there is water around. Literally, there's water
in the air
around.
Wow.
So, if the Pokemon are tapping and utilizing this energy, like we've been talking about, the water type energy that's in the air, that's in its body, that's, in the environment around it, then perhaps, and maybe, so a Pokemon, in order to really fully realize its potential, has to bond with a trainer. You never see wild water types floating around. If you just saw Goldeen floating around in Viridian Forest, you'd be like, what the fuck? Okay, anime, that's too much. I know we're in the safari zone right now, but that should not be, that shit don't happen. But at the same time, if someone throws out a Goldeen in the middle of a battle, you don't even bat an eyelash if it floats. Maybe there's a reason. Maybe in universe, the trainers would feel the same about it, and they'd be like, well, yeah, that one's bonded with a trainer. Its ability to utilize, to link with others' aura and to utilize the water energy around it and the water particles in the air around it to hold its body up outside of water has increased. Trainers facilitate travel. They use Pokeballs. They use HM moves, which give them strength and cut and teleport and dig.
Access to the whole world.
Yeah, and fly and the ability to suddenly travel better. That's it. And then travel and exposure to other environments facilitates evolution.
Yeah. Yes, you totally nailed it. And just like Pokemon's connection with energy is so different than the way humans connect with energy. I totally believe that they could either gather together the water particles in the air around them enough to breathe, or just they don't even need that.
Yeah.
There's just like kind of some magic that happens because Pokemon can manipulate energy and utilize energy and produce energy in ways that humans in our current reality have never done.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm totally on board that that's possible. Wow.
I love it. Wow.
Because,
I love it.
Like in Pokemon... Oh, wait. I have another point, though. In Pokemon Snap, when you're on the river level, you're going through the river. I don't remember if you throw an apple or you have to throw something in the water. No, they're just happening like this, I think. There's Shellder, and they just launch out of the river and just kind of slowly float and, like, turn around in the air on their own. And then it's like, what? So there are wild Pokemon that can float in the air. Although you could say they're just jumping out of the water and like it's like going in slow motion because it's so amazing or something. But
also,
but I have seen it happen.
There's going to be a lot of water in the air immediately over the ocean and over a lake in an aquatic environment or a river or a swamp or wherever. So, and they're using it for a brief burst of time. They're not like moving around, floating around through the environment. Whereas if they've bonded with a human and 5 other Pokemon, if they've bonded,
wow. That's so cool. I love that.
Me
great,
too.
Man.
I love it. But that's the thing is, I didn't come up with that just like sitting here scratching my chin. I came up with it discussing it with a fellow Pokemon enthusiast of equal intelligence. So thank you, sir.
Well, shucks. Cool. So a few details about Cloyster.
Yeah. Well, let's want
to talk about it?
Let's set the table for Cloyster. We sort of Yeah, its name is
that's nice.
Cloyster, which I want to say another brilliant one of the most brilliant in the series. I've got to say, it's Pokemon naming at its finest because of its simplicity. Like, sure, you can get into the intricacies we did with Nidoran, but you don't even have to think too hard, and yet you think a little harder and you're rewarded. First of all, the obvious clam plus oyster equals Cloyster.
Yep.
But the word cloister with an I, not a Y, it can mean like a secluded and sheltered place, or to seclude or shelter yourself as a verb. That is fucking
it's a perfect
brilliant.
Name.
It's in a shelter, cloister, like
shelter, shell,
amazing.
Yeah, dude.
They misspell by one letter in both words. They just change one letter to a letter that sounds the same, T to D and I to Y, and bam. And not only that, but they get anyway. Man, amazing.
Yeah, it's a wonder. Like I think that was the localization team that came up with all the American names. You know, because in Japan it's just called Parshen, which means pearl and shell. Like it's just kind of a combination of those words. It's not that great. Cloyster's way better. You know. But the Chinese names, there's Mandarin and Cantonese. They both mean armored shell, which just sounds really cool. Like that sounds like a video game I would want to play. Right?
That sounds like a JRPG.
Armored. Yeah. And actually the Chinese names for Shellder, one of them means big-tongued shell, pretty straightforward, and the other one means shell freak, which is maybe a little insensitive, but you know, it's a shell with a cool radical tongue hanging out. So like, yeah.
What region are those names?
Those are both Chinese.
I don't remember if it was China or I feel like it was like, I don't remember, but Porygon is a 3D dragon. And yeah, it's Chinese. Oh, yeah. It's Chinese.
That's so rad. Which that sounds like a knockoff of like some kind of toy. Like you'll be like, at some sketchy $1 store in San Francisco and you'll be like, 3D Dragon, and it's like a set of like the Avengers action figures in the wrong color, and it's called 3D Dragon or something. It's like
I just love the idea of a Pokemon battle where one trainer's like 3D Dragon, go, and the other trainer's like big tongued clam, go. Just amazing. So Cloyster, it's 4'11", which sounds about accurate to me.
Yep, I agree. Some Pokemon sizes feel wrong. I think Shellder and Cloyster both seem accurate.
Yeah, I think so. It's got like a small little round black body or face like Shellder, almost like a black pearl.
Ooh, Pirates of the Caribbean.
And that's a great opportunity for naming your Shellder or your Cloyster if anybody's thinking something to do with pirates.
The black pearl. That's cute.
Yeah. So it's encased in this like silverish gray inner shell. And it's got a horn or spike like just above its head. And then that's encased in like a much bigger, like horned, light violet colored shell. Or it's like a darker navy blue color in shinies. And then Shellder is like a golden, like orangish, yellowish gold shell.
It's pretty cool looking.
I think they have cool shinies for sure. I appreciate that in some shinies they totally change when they evolve, and in some of them they don't.
Yeah, I think it's more exciting when they change between evolutionary stages, for sure. So Cloyster is a pretty popular Pokemon as far as, like, defense, because it has this gigantic shell around it. Like, its defense stats are really high. It's kind of cool.
Its defensive stats are insanely high. It's tied, just regular old Cloyster is tied for the best defense with Mega Slowbro. which is a Shellder, which is half Shellder. So.
Wow, that's interesting. Wow. And it's like 75% Shellder if you look at like like how big the gray part is versus the pink part. You know, it's totally different. Wow, that's interesting. That's a cool detail.
Is it me, or does Cloyster sort of intentionally look like a hair clip, too?
I never thought about that, but I get that. Yeah, it's like a butterfly, whatever those things are called.
Well, yeah, the back of it has the little leverage part that you'd needs the proper leverage, mate. Full circle again. It's a full circle podcast. But like the clams, I looked up a bunch of images to make sure. I can't find a picture of a clam that has like a back like that.
Yeah.
And it has that, like, so that you could squeeze its back to open its shell.
Open the front, right. Yeah, I get that.
Which is a horrible evolutionary disadvantage.
But let's talk about that for a second, because there have been Pokemon, or Pokedex entries that said its innards have never been seen. So evidently that doesn't work. It looks like it would, and maybe that's where it wants you. It's got a hidden spike back there where it can shoot you or something, but... It's like, it looks like that'd be a huge weakness, but somehow its innards have never been seen.
Even though it says that it always remains closed except when it's attacking. But we've seen it open because it's a sentient social creature.
Yeah, and when you're trying to tell stories, it's hard to like have someone's face hidden the whole time behind a shell.
Well,
it's kind of awkward. It's hard to talk from in there.
I'd imagine it opens up to interact with its trainer, you know, so that would make sense too. But you know what I think is that maybe... Because look at its old sprites, and I think maybe when it was originally designed, it wasn't meant to have a pearl face. It was meant to be a black abyss that you see a pair of eyes and a grinning mouth peering out of, that it was mysterious and no one's ever seen what it looks like inside its shell. But then because Pokemon was such a huge franchise that made the leap into 3D and anime and manga, it got more defined, and it's sort of evolved in the creative sense to look like a little round. I don't know.
I totally get that. That makes sense to me.
And also, the Pokedex is filled with hyperbole. Like, we know that its shell is hard enough to withstand a bomb, but, like, it says that it's indestructible and, like, nothing can damage it. And it's like, well, fucking, what about Charizard's flame that can melt through or Typhlosion's flame that can melt through anything? What do you, like, there's hyperbole in one of these dex entries.
Totally. You're right. And like Shelder's one Pokedex entry says its shell is harder than diamond. Another one says that Ammonite or Amistar used to like just crunch it and eat it. So that means it can crunch through diamond. That's pretty impressive. So that means that it's not like one of the hardest substances known to man. It should be Amistar's teeth or beak or whatever is one of the hardest substances known to man. But yeah, dude, the fact that there are multiple Pokedex entries that talk about how bombs and like missiles can't break through the Cloyster's shell. Well, like what were those scientists doing, man?
Bombs is the shell. Missiles is specifically the spike.
Spine thing, yeah.
Yeah, you're right.
You're
fucking fires those at opponents, and they're said to be even more tough than the shell, which makes sense. A pearl is lighter but stronger than concrete.
Huh.
Crazy, right?
Wow, I didn't know that. That's cool.
In the real world, I mean, yeah.
Yeah. Dang. That's really interesting.
Yeah.
But, like, that kind of goes back to, like, the nature of the relationship between Pokemon and humans, where it's like, your shell's really hard. And then over generations, people are like, that shell's really, really hard. Like, and people are just trying escalating methods of trying to open it to see what's in there, like... Eventually to the point where they're just like attaching bombs to like a living Pokemon to try to see its innards or whatever. Things get pretty crazy. It's not just like you're pulling your Pokemon's tongue anymore. It's like we're trying to blow you up, dude, and it's not working.
I'm gonna give them the benefit of the doubt that they've figured out how strong its shell is without actually subjecting it to that test. There's ways in which you can test the strength of a shell and deduce the strength of... We've never seen our Earth's like mantle or core or whatever, you know.
Right.
We've just figured
we can just tell.
Yeah, we've deduced it from
you're right.
the evidence.
That's a good point. And you can compare it to similar substances that are also bomb resistant and be like, yeah, whatever, it's bomb resistant.
Yeah.
So that makes sense.
Also, they've developed and yet not really used bombs, it seems, then in the Pokemon universe.
Yeah, they know about bombs. Like, they remember them from the Pokemon War, but they don't use them anymore.
Or there's the more chilling implication, which is that they have used them and there's entire regions we haven't explored yet.
Yeah.
Ooh. Shithole regions.
Right. Yeah, the nuclear fallout regions.
As aggressive assholes with more power than they should rightfully have, may call them. Anyway.
Yeah.
We're not a political podcast.
I've got another Pokedex thing. There's a quote from... Oh, I didn't write it down. Some Pokedex. Excavation of the tombs of ancient hunting tribes have turned up many spears tipped with spikes that had fallen off this Pokemon's shell.
Yeah.
So it's kind of cool. There's like that same thing with Shellder. It's like we are going to use part of you as a shield, and we're going to use part of your evolution as a spear. Like, it's kind of an interesting connection between the human and the Pokemon.
And that was also Sun and Moon, which established that. So they made, like I said, a lot of big developments. That is fantastic. Like, and you're right. Like, people must have had, like, went to war regularly, or maybe not. Maybe again, they didn't have Pokeballs then. They had at most, I would imagine, in early civilizations, certain individuals in your community had Pokemon partners. They would probably have one Pokemon partner, and not everyone in town. Like, so they needed to protect themselves from the elements. It's a really scary world, especially before like the scientific advances. That, man,
and I mean, it did say they were ancient hunting tribes, so it's not necessarily that they're warring with other humans, but rather they're hunting stuff for food, which, you know, is something that I can get down with because, you know, I have to eat as well. Just because I'm vegan doesn't mean I don't understand how food works. But like,
oh, are you vegan?
I am. Yeah, it's been 10 years, man. It's a big deal. But
that's awesome. I think it's really interesting. I think it's important that anyone respects what they're eating, and because no matter what, something died for you to eat. And yes, you can eat just fruit and nuts and not kill to eat, but you know what? No, because there's still microorganisms. There's still communities of microorganisms that die just from you harvesting one apple. So like, something does die. And even so, that tree, something died for that apple tree to grow big enough and strong enough. It aggressively overpowered other plants in order to become fruitful enough to give you that apple. So like,
yeah, man. And like the nutrients of the soil that came from all, you know, millions of dead animals that cover the planet's surface all the time, which is kind of crazy, but the planet's been here a long time. There's a lot of dead stuff on the surface that's just turned into dirt by now.
Yeah.
It's kind of wild.
You know what? If you're eating an apple, I seriously doubt it just fell off a tree randomly. There's probably somebody that put a lot of hard work into maintaining an apple field. Like, respect your food and where it comes from and appreciate it no matter who you are, and don't give others a hard time. Like,
Amen.
Which is, that's unless
dude, the school I most recently taught at, I was going to do a workshop that was called speciesism in the Pokemon world, which, like, speciesism is like the belief that one species is better than another species, just like on paper for sure this species is better. So it's like an interesting philosophical kind of vegan-y thing that fits in with Pokemon a lot. Like, is a Pokemon's life worth more than a human's life, or is a human's life worth more than a Pokemon's life? It's kind of a cool concept to go into. There wasn't a ton of interest in the class, so I didn't actually teach it, but like, it's definitely something I would love to explore.
Well, I mean, they are equally sentient beings according to the series. And I think that all animals are sort of equally sentient. We just have different cognitive ability, but that's... I get the shorthand of communicating with people that aren't thinking that deeply about the philosophical nature of consciousness. So, for the purposes of that type of discussion, they're equally sentient to humans. They're not just dumb animals.
Right. And, like, a Pokemon's potential is maybe in getting stronger and being better at shooting water out of your back or whatever, whereas a human's potential is on impacting the lives of other people and impacting the life of the planet and impacting the life of other Pokemon. A human's never going to be able to shoot really good water out of their back, but you can still have a huge potential no matter what kind of species you are. It's kind of cool.
Well, it's interesting because the dynamics of their society, like, their society seems to be fueled by, like, the dynamics of two things I think you can say have the strongest influence, which is like science and power, which is interesting because that, if reading Jurassic Park for the 800th time has taught me anything, is a very frightening combination, because scientific power is the one type of power that doesn't require discipline to attain. It does on a macro level. It requires species-wide discipline, but it does not require individual discipline.
Wow, yeah, that's true.
But it's interesting, but it seems to be done with a underlying, like, I think because of the dynamics, there's always this restraint. There's a restraint, you know? But I don't know. It's interesting. I've been thinking about it a lot. I've been thinking about if, like, the changes in administration, if you will,
sure,
between Gen 1 and Gen 2 are specifically Red replacing people in the Pokemon League.
And the changes that makes to the system.
Yeah, we know that Giovanni left. Now, we don't know whether or not Red would have replaced him before or after. I'm not trying to say that he replaced him before he left, and that's why he left. I'm just trying to say that it is kind of open to think about which one happened. But it's very interesting to think he promoted Koga, if that's the case. And I like to think that, like, Koga can be seen to be very cruel and whatnot, but he's disciplined. And is Blaine gone in Gen 2? No, Blaine's still around, right?
He's still there.
Yeah.
I think
Blaine is still there. I don't know, but I don't know. It's just interesting to think about. We've got a lot to talk about, and that's not it. But it's something I've been thinking about a lot lately and fleshing out in my brain.
It's good to keep thinking in new directions and exploring new frontiers like that. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Cool. Hey, speaking of Giovanni, in the anime and manga, he has a Cloyster, even though he's the ground type gym leader. Isn't that weird?
That is weird. That is very interesting. Yeah, Lorelei is sort of synonymous with Cloyster. I feel like I kind of want to talk about that a little bit later. Lorelei and Cloyster, maybe. We won't get too deep into that. But Giovanni, Cloyster seems to fit. It seems to be a ruthless Pokemon.
Yep, it's definitely got the look for it. You know, it kind of looks like a Ghastly inside of a clamshell.
There's a fan theory
it's kind of interesting.
They're Ghastlies, but get the fuck out of here.
Ghastly's a dead Cloyster, and then Gengar is Clefairy's shadow, so then, you know, Shellder can evolve into Clefairy.
Well, how about the 150 Pokemon were designed and refined by a core team of individuals? The art has always been designed by one. The final art for each Pokemon has been designed by one guy, and they're also all, like, inspired by, like, the cultural, like, art style of, like, anime and manga. So, like, that there's similarities between them. Like, it doesn't have to be a fan theory that a Ghastly's not a dead Shellder. Come on, get the fuck out of
here. You could also say the same thing about, like, Primeape. Like, well, they have the same style eyes, so obviously when a Primeape dies, it turns into a Ghastly. And then a Ghastly gets trapped in the shell like a pearl, and that's where Cloysters come from.
And then
that's a new fan theory.
If you put it in a Pokeball, it's a Voltorb.
Right, yep. There's only so many anime-style eyes you can draw, people. I mean, come on.
Speaking with its ruthless nature and speaking about, like, diet and whatnot, they've developed it a lot in recent Pokedex entries. The Sun and Moon, I think, or maybe it was Ultra Sun, Ultra Moon, said that Cloysters sometimes come out onto land to hunt for Slowpoke because they love Slowpoke tails. That's why I think Shellder are actually trying to eat the tail.
The Slowpoke tail.
We know that the tails are delicious, which we'll talk about in the next episode, because people, it's like a black market delicacy. But I love this. Just like thinking about like a National Geographic special about it, like you can see how this could play out. They don't have to venture far because slowpoke live close to the water, and you can see them like coming out late at night and like leaving their tracks in the sand and finding a slowpoke eating its tail, going retiring back into the water. And it's even more interesting because like this means that the slowpoke and the Shellder want to eat each other, because the slowpoke, when it puts its tail in the water, it's fishing for food. That's what it's doing according to the Pokedex. And when the Shellder comes up and bites its tail, it's again, that actually makes sense with when we fish too. The fish is trying to eat and we're trying to eat. Wow. So like that's just a really interesting dynamic.
Yeah, you're right. There's an interesting connection there. But then with the Slowbro thing, it's like, well, what if the fisherman and the fish got merged together and spent the rest of their life as one being? Like, that'd be such a weird world. I don't know if people would go fishing anymore if that was a possible outcome. You know, my cousin went fishing and he turned into this kind of fish man hybrid thing, and now I'm going to go fishing.
That's so funny. My cousin went to FurryCon and he came back as a weird fish man hybrid thing.
And so now are you going to go, or did you learn a lesson from him?
Well, I learned a lesson not to call him a weird fish man hybrid thing. He's not a thing. Yeah. He's a sentient being.
His preferences are just different than yours.
Yes.
And, his skin texture is just a lot slimier. Anyway.
Don't worry. Things are just going to get weirder and weirder from here.
I hope so.
Oh, you don't have to hope, because it's really obvious to me and to many people.
Oh no.
What Cloyster is. And I'm not trying to be funny. This isn't a crude podcast, I like to think.
True.
And I'm not bringing this up for like like cheap laughs. I'm totally, this is one of the fan theories that I think there's enough evidence to me that I think it's intended.
All right, drop the bomb. What is it?
You know where I'm going with this, don't you?
I think I do.
Cloyster's a vagina.
And Shellder's a tongue.
Yeah. Yeah, wow, I actually didn't even think of that. Wow.
Oy vey.
It is. Now don't scoff. Look at it. First of all, Google image search, look at it.
But not the Gen 1 Sprite.
And don't look up the Gen 1 Sprite. But it looks like one. It has a clitoris, the spike. It has a labia minora, a labia majora. The face could be like a baby coming out. Like, bivalvia even comes from the same root word as vulva. I actually don't know that.
Wow.
I'm pretty sure,
totally
because
believe it,
they sound kind of similar.
Yeah,
but
I'm looking.
I know vulva might come from volvo, which means to wrap around, like a shell. So, like, I don't know if bivalvia. I did look up the etymology of it, and I couldn't conclusively determine that it does come from the same root word of vulva, but I do feel like they are linguistically related, because they're similar in definition, and it's, again, not trying to be crude. If you use this slang, you're probably a fucking douchebag. Well, I don't know. If you're a dude and you use it, you're probably a douchebag. I'm not trying to be sexist, but like, cultural context exists, people. Let's not pretend it doesn't. But like, clam is slang. It's really crude, rude slang for vagina, you know. I guess whatever. If you're a lesbian in the 90s and you use it, then word. All the more power to you. Who am I to tell you what you can and can't say? But
right.
I'm not trying to make any definitive statements. I'm just trying to say it is, and like, okay, it's ability skill link, which allows for the possibility of multiple orgasms. It allows for more frequent usage of multiple hitting moves. I'm not even trying to be funny. I'm saying, like, that in a vacuum maybe is like, okay, sure. But like, when you're looking at it with your tinfoil hat on,
yeah, I had never looked at it from that perspective before.
Also, clams give birth to like 1 billion babies at once. Like, for real, like 1 billion. I'm not exaggerating, but most of them die. Yeah, I'm literally not exaggerating. I think it's like almost 1 billion. Yeah, most of them die like almost immediately, and then most of them die within a week, and then most of them die within, like we said,
before the 3 years where they actually can defend themselves a little bit with a shell.
Yeah.
which still can be eaten by a lot of creatures.
Yeah.
They have a hard life, man.
It's hard out here. And one last piece of evidence, which in Heart Gold and Soul Silver, there's a trainer. There's NPCs you fight. It's a young couple is the trainer class, so it's a double battle. And it's a young couple, Duff and Ida, a male and female, respectively. And they have an Onyx and a Cloyster. And again, I'm not trying to be crude. I'm just saying if you put all this evidence together, it's really hard to deny.
It's interesting. You're totally right. There's something there, I think.
Yeah. Oh, and not only that, if you slowly poke something inside it, you end up with a new Pokemon. And as we all know,
Wow. That's true. Dude, that's really weird. You're totally right.
Think about it, man. It's
and that is something else.
But it's also worth saying that doesn't mean it's crude. It doesn't have to be crude for something to be based on a vagina. Like, why does that have to be crude? It's just a part of the body. It's a life-giving organ that ancient people revered and put all over their art, and they created all sorts of mythical deities and beings based around it specifically, and fertility specifically. So, like, I think it's okay that there's a Pokemon based on the vagina. And sure, if you want to bring it up on 4chan or Reddit, you better be prepared for some fucked up this discussion. But I don't know. I think it's okay. I think it's a beautiful natural thing.
I think so. I think from a mature perspective, it is, it's symbology that represents kind of the organ you need to continue as a species, which is generally important to every creature. But then, from a teenage boy perspective, it's like, but it shouldn't be a funny thing. It's a celebration of life.
Hey, well, that said,
I don't think. Yeah.
That said, it's entirely natural to laugh and joke around and find humor in things, and that is not inherently disrespectful. Context.
Totally.
Context is important, as I keep saying.
Humor is when you get exposed to something you're not expecting, or things go a different way than what you thought. And so, your first sex ed class when you're in 5th grade or whatever, you're probably going to get a lot of giggles because it's like, I've never seen something like that before, or like I didn't know what that thing was, or you know what I mean? Like, it's funny because it's unexpected.
Yeah, if you're Jay Muse on the corner, like, yeah, baby, I got a slowpoke for that Cloyster, like, then, okay, yeah, that's the context of that is not respectful. It is inherent. What you're saying is disrespectful, but not because there's humor involved. It's because you're being a fucking prick, dude. Like, but
then
if
again, it is natural to be immature at a certain point in your life. There's always going to be some young kid making a joke about the sacred idol or whatever throughout all of human civilization.
I'm not shaming you if you look at a Cloyster, realize it looks like a vagina, and chuckle about that, because it's kind of funny. And you know what? Classical Buddhist and Taoist art pokes fun and makes jokes too, because jokes are not inherently disrespectful. It's the context of the joke that is not an excuse to just tell racist jokes and tell homophobic jokes. It's saying if you investigate the context, you can see easily whether or not something is disrespectful. It's a very powerful tool, humor.
Totally
For the
true.
dark side or the light side. Midichlorians.
Although I do feel like, I don't know if it was intentional design, because I don't see Cloyster as being a very motherly, womanly kind of figure. It seems kind of mischievous based on its facial expression, and it's pretty thorny with its attacks and its spikes and its ice type. It's not like that's typically what you imagine to accompany the sacred mother figure is an ice type that's spiky. I don't know if that's what we want to say about our mothers, but but maybe that's what the designers of this Pokemon were going for, or maybe it's just an unintended consequence. Who knows?
It could be. Let's not skirt around it. Let's come out and say it. I guess that could be a misogynistic parallel.
Wow. I guess you're right.
The ice type, the ice cold, cruel, but that's not necessary, though. It could be. I'm not going to deny that could be the intention, but
And sometimes you need to use the force of a bomb to get in there.
But
that says some things. That's not what we want to be representing humankind.
I mean, Pokemon do come from multiple influences. Like that, I think it's just like, well, I guess with Jinx. Jinx could be racist, but it also could not be racist. I'm really hardcore on the fence, and it's not as a Pokemon apologist, because I am not an apologist. Ludicolo is fucking racist. That said, I don't think Mario wearing a sombrero is necessarily racist. So I'm not like an SJW either. I'm just a rational person who likes to be respectful and respect other people's feelings and think about things. And then like Ludicolo is racist, and like, yeah, you done fucked up when you made Ludicolo, people. But like Jinx, it's tough because there's a yokai, which is Jinx, and that yokai is not racist because that yokai predates the insensitive cultural archetypes of blackface by many centuries. And it's
Jinx looks more like a racial stereotype than Ludicolo does. Like, I know there's some other things that contribute to it, but just from looking at a picture of it,
but like,
if you showed someone who didn't know Pokemon, is this picture racist or is this picture racist? I think most people would point at Jinx being more racist.
I know. Well, equally, I would have to say no. It's not more like a cultural stereotype. Equally at best. Ludicolo's got a mustache, a sombrero. It's happy,
but he also looks like a pineapple. Like, if you don't know what that Pokemon is, you're like, oh, it's a pineapple guy with a funny hat.
But there's a yokai, which is
you're right.
It's a black-skinned woman with long blonde hair that lives in the icy peaks and can control the winds, and like, it wears long flowing gowns. And there's also like an ancient Norse goddess, which was like, or not goddess, but being that like was a frozen like ice queen with long blonde hair or something. It's tough because like I said, I'm not actually trying to be an apologist and say, no, guys, it's not, because that's what it sounds like. A white dude like, guys, Jinx isn't racist. I like Pokemon, so I don't want it to be racist. No, because I'm more than willing to say Ludicolo is hands down fucking racist. There's no argument that it's not. And Jinx, I'm 100% 50-50. I'm 100% 50%. But like, no, I'm 100% 50-50 because like I see many ways in which it could easily not be and many ways in which it easily could be. And it's very likely that it's taking its inspiration from both of those, because Japan doesn't have a good history with respecting using like a respectful usage of that horrible cultural archetype of blackface and Little Sambo and yeah.
That whole thing is kind of weird, but it does kind of get back, I think, to the thing we were talking about with like the importance of the vagina as a figure, how it's going to be funny to some people and some people like revere it. And I don't know, it's a similar kind of thing where if your culture doesn't see it as being sacred, they're going to act pretty immature about it because they don't see it as something that needs to be upheld and respected, and they don't understand it all the way. Like, it's like a young kid being exposed to this for the first time, and it's kind of funny because so they laugh at it. It's like that with blackface, I think, when they don't realize necessarily that this has this horrible history and all the things that it represents and that it empowers that are super bad. But when you first see it for the first time, if you've never seen like an actual black person in real life, you might be like, that guy looks funny. His skin's a weird color. Like,
sure. I mean, look at Bugs Bunny. Bugs Bunny does not look like a real bunny. And in Japan, it's a very sheltered, like, again, not being an apologist, more trying to understand the context of why things happen. So, like, it's not an excuse for insensitive art. It's trying to understand the context and the historical context, you know, of insensitive art, so that we as people can grow and refine ourselves as culturally sensitive and intelligent, thoughtful people who can understand where these things come from and therefore try to avoid the development of them further in the future. Because why hurt someone's feelings? Fuck political correctness. It's about being nice and not hurting people's feelings. It's about understanding the context of things. It's not about being politically correct because jokes are mean and rude. No, you're missing the point. It's that certain jokes are coming from a very insensitive, ignorant place, and certain ones are not. And if you generally can guttily, is that the word? Gutturally?
Gutturally? I don't
Gutturally.
Know. From your gut?
Yeah, through your gut. You can
I don't know.
you can tell through your gut which ones are and are not without thinking about it. Like when you watch a edgy comedic show, for example. But if you think about it, you can really break down and see why. I don't know. I don't know. We're getting way off base, but you did bring up is Japan? I feel like Japanese. Maybe I'm a dumb, ignorant white dude, so I'm not trying to.
Yeah, this is gonna sound like a stereotype. I think.
Well, no, I'm just trying to understand historically, the Japanese culture does it. I know it reveres a lot of creation myths. Revere the phallic side of nature as opposed to a lot of cultures which have there's a lot of creation myths that have to do with sperm and penises more so than most cultures do lean towards, at least in their origins. And then I guess it gets corrupted as we near the modern age, but in their origins lean toward revering the yoni or the feminine, reproductive organs. I don't know. Again, I'm not being xenophobic. I'm not trying to say Japanese people are immature and sexist at all.
You're trying to understand it more, and I think that's what's important too, is not to just look at this snapshot image and judge it based on that, but to have conversations about it and do research on it, and then you're allowed to make jokes about it, right? Once you understand it more, in an effort to kind of teach people more about it or point out how insensitive one thing is. That's a good subject area for jokes, I think, is this thing is wrong and here's why, and here's how we can all be more kind because of it or know more about it.
Yeah, I think a great comparison is a pun is a neutral joke. A pun does not knock down or build up in order to make you laugh, which most jokes knock down or build up in order to make you laugh. A pun is just a neutral joke. So yeah. Anyway.
Cool.
Cloyster.
Wow.
There's another speaking of Japanese culture, which I think is awesome.
Ooh.
I want to make that clear. I love to celebrate it. Just
it's made a huge impact on our lives, clearly.
Every culture on earth is awesome and fun, and it also has difficult and problematic aspects because we're all humans. There's no culture on earth that isn't a human culture. That's not true. Like I said, what I said about animals earlier, but we're not getting into that.
Culture of bacteria.
Yeah, right. There you go. Most Pokemon have a yokai influence. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Which, if you're not familiar, those are just kind of Japanese monsters or spirits, folkloric things. I kind of wish we had more of these in our culture because they are super cool. But it's basically what Pokemon are. It's just a big old set of the universal monsters that we have. What if there were hundreds of those and the stories went back hundreds of years?
And they're just they're real life Pokemon. Some of them are inanimate objects. Some of them are human-like entities. Some of them are spirits or ghosts. Some of them are rare exotic animals, which we would probably call a cryptid or a cryptozoological, like Bigfoot. It's varied. It's Pokemon, and I feel like understanding what yokai are makes you much more receptive and accepting of Pokemon that people are quick to dismiss as that's not a Pokemon, that's a Digimon, or that's a key. That's an ice cream cone.
Yeah.
But there is a specific Pokemon known as Sazai Oni.
You mean yokai?
Yeah. What did I call it?
Okay, there you go.
Did I call it a Pokemon?
You said specific Pokemon.
A specific yokai. Not Yokai Watch, but Sazai Oni. It's a yokai in Japanese history. And basically the story goes, if a turban snail, or a horned turban snail, which is the real-life type of snail that Shellder's Slowking forms are based on, if it reaches 30 years of age, it becomes a Sazai Oni, which this is actually a common origin for yokai. Certain animals live so long that they're honored, I guess, by the gods, and they digivolve into a yokai. to picture this yokai, Sazai Oni, you can Google it, Sazae-oni, Sazai Oni, or picture a big horned turban shell or turban snail, i.e. Slowbro's tail, with eyes like Slowking's helmet, with a big long clam foot sticking out the bottom, so that mussel, like mussel as in mussel, like the sea creature that lives in a shell. A mussel-like pink weird like organ that looks like a foot tongue, sort of serving as its body, and it's got two backwards facing human arms that it walks around on, uses as both feet and arms. Now that you're thoroughly horrified, that's ooh, like it's clear in some ways how it's based on it, with like the eyes on the shell and everything. Turban, of course, in the Space World demo. Also, snails, turban snails are really slow, like Slow King. You know, I don't know.
There's something there.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's curious. It's a weird creature with lots of weird stories associated with it that definitely.
Yeah. Some weird sexual stuff.
Yeah, they don't
Kinda
glorify
weird.
Femininity. Not really.
No. They do. There is femininity in the story, though, so I don't know. There's maybe some connection there, possibly.
Oh, no. Maybe it is all full circle. Either way, there is merit to understanding and discussing it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. Trigger warning, pirates doing pirate shit. I like to tell these yokai
Yes.
stories on the show because I think they're really fun and interesting. But pirates do pirate shit. And for those of you that aren't familiar with what pirates do, pirates rape and pillage. And I don't think rape jokes are funny. Like I said, they're like race jokes. They are very powerful for the dark side or the light side. If you are a victim of rape, don't let anyone tell you you're not allowed to use humor as a coping mechanism to deal with what you've gone through. And also, it's not anyone's place to ask somebody if they're a victim of rape when they make a joke. It's just investigate the context of the joke. And if someone's being insensitive, let them know they're being insensitive. And if someone tells you you're being insensitive, don't get defensive. I think it's as simple as that.
But if you do, that is a moment you can connect with someone and explain to them, you don't necessarily have to give them your full history, but say, I'm aware that this is a sensitive topic and here's why I've chosen to do this or whatever. But I don't know, have those conversations. If someone makes you uncomfortable, talk to them about it. Don't attack them. Just talk to them about it. Unless they say, yeah, no, rape's funny, so I make rape jokes. Like that, maybe you could blast them on the internet a little bit. But usually people will have chosen to do the action they chose for a reason, and they can talk to you about it. And most people are decent, in my opinion, and we'll be open to criticism and discussion about their works.
That said, I just trigger warning this because it's a really sensitive topic that people don't want to hear about on a comedic, fun podcast about magical animals.
Right.
Pirates do pirate shit in this story. It doesn't actually feature rape, but it features intent of rape, I guess, and we're going to discuss this story. And this is still a comedic podcast, and I don't intend on shifting the tone when discussing this story, but I do intend on being respectful. So if you feel that I've failed in that department, I welcome you to reach out to me in public, on the Facebook, on the Twitter. Just be cool, because I don't intend to hurt anybody's feelings, so don't attack me. I will say I'm sorry if I ever make a mistake, because I'm only human. I'm a dumb white guy. What can I say? That said, pirates. There's this old tale about Sazai Oni, about these pirates that kidnap a woman and they bring her on board to do what you would suspect a crew of pirates would be kidnapping a woman and bringing her on board to do. Only to find that she's actually she loves pirates. She's totally willing to sleep with all of them, every last one of them. I know this is a really uncomfortable story.
Yeah.
So while this comes off at first as really bad Linkara fan fiction, there's more to the story. There's more beneath the surface. So she does, one by one, she sleeps with all the pirates. And when she's done with each of them, she cuts off and steals their testicles. Afterwards, once they've all discovered what she's done, that they've all suffered the same terrible fate, they throw her into the ocean in a rage. And once she's in the water, she transforms into her true form, the Sazai Oni, and begins bargaining with them and convinces them to trade her their pirate gold for their testicles. And in Japan, testicles are called kintama, which translates directly to golden balls. So the punchline of the story is that they traded gold for gold. It was a pun. So since it was a pun, it was inoffensive and
It's not
neutral.
offensive. Although, I mean, it seemed like it was just a kind of particular fetish that she had. You know, there's nothing wrong with exploring the kind of more deviant sides of your sexuality as long as you're doing things intentionally and there's consent involved. Then I don't know. There are some versions of the story where they rescued her. She was drowning, and that's a good thing.
Well, the thing that
and they didn't actually. They were just interested in her. They weren't trying to like rape her necessarily, but it can be depicted or translated in different ways for sure.
I think the thing that would be wrong with it is the intent of and the context of the writer using a fictional medium like Stephen King. So like that's the point where it becomes, and again, it's metatextual to begin with, any problem with it, because pirates do rape and kill, and yokai do, and demons and spirits do sleep with people and manipulate them sexually in order to damage them and get something out of them. And that, so like, in the context of the story, yes, there's nothing narratively wrong with any of this, but I'm saying the reason writing a story about a bunch of guys who are about to rape a woman and the woman's like, oh no, I'll fuck all of you, like, is again, the intent is what's important. If you're writing it because you have a fantasy about that and you're a mature, responsible person who would like to engage with other people of either gender that have that fantasy, then more power to you, so long as you're being cognizant and respectful. And, you know, maybe we should more often put disclaimers on pornographic material like that. I don't know. I'm not trying to be the person to make the concrete judgments. But it is a naturally uncomfortable and skeevy topic to try to touch. It's
kind of like a fairy tale, though, where there's going to, I mean, especially like an old-fashioned, you know, German-style fairy tale, there's going to be some really hardcore stuff that goes down. It's to tell a powerful story. And I don't know, it's hard to tell a compelling moral tale about just two people being nice to each other. You know, there's got to be a bad guy. Something bad has to happen for there to be a bad guy. There has to be some kind of conflict, or else people are just like, I don't know, it's just like two people sitting at a table talking to each other nicely. I don't know. Even in a Kevin Smith movie, which is just two people in a booth talking to each other, there's conflict involved. Someone's being mean. You know, like, there's a story going on there. It's like, I don't know.
Yeah.
So I guess you can kind of expect in any story for there to be some mean person. Because if everyone was nice, that'd be kind of boring. Like, that's just like the best job you ever had as a movie. Like, that's not very fun, I don't think. It's not very compelling to an outsider. Kind of weird. That went places, right?
Speaking of
Shelder and Cloyster, everybody.
Speaking of conflict, I want to talk strategy in these Pokemon Spotlights again. When we first started the show, I sort of talked strategy as like an obligation. I felt like it was unfair to not cover what a lot of people might go to these podcasts looking for.
Right.
That said, if you've listened to the show for a while, you know that is not my central preoccupation. I am far from a super gamer expert. In fact, I have no idea what I'm talking about with most regards. But I did read through the Smogon entries and watch a few videos, and I'd like to maybe use that to inform a discussion about like a general view of strategy in universe, like in canon. Trainers who train Lorelei is her signature Pokemon is a Cloyster. You know that she thinks about strategy. You know that when a Pokemon trainer puts together a team and trains with a team and goes to a league event or even just faces somebody, they're using strategy. And if the Pokemon use the same moves they use in the games, why wouldn't strategy be informed by what people actually use competitively? So I don't know. I think that's a really interesting angle to take looking at this. I don't know. Do you have any strategic familiarity with this family? It's fine if you don't.
Not in particular. I just know they're very good. They have high defensive stats, and I know there's not a lot of ice-type Pokemon in Gen 1, which is kind of cool. You can, I don't know, it's not a thing people are usually prepared to defend against necessarily. But yeah, that's pretty much all I have to offer, really.
Its defense, as we said, is massive. You bring up Gen 1, it was the second best stat in general in Gen 1. There was Chansey's HP, and then Cloyster's defense were the best stats. Its special defense is really, really lacking, though. Really lacking. Its stats are all over the place. It's a veritable mountain valley. That's a word, right? Mountain range.
Well, there's mountains and valleys, yeah.
Mountain range, I think.
There you go. That's cute.
But there's a lot of range in its stats, too. So full circle, people. It's one of those podcasts.
Double entendre. No one's hurt by that joke. That was a good one. Yeah.
But no one offended by that one. It's a mountain range. They're ranged. So
Okay.
Its special defense is abysmal, and its ice type tends to be more of a liability. It adds on weaknesses that you'd avoid by just using a straight water type. But
Yeah.
again, use Pokemon you love, and I feel like that's what if you love a Cloyster, like then that's. Use that Pokemon on your team and utilize it strategically. So, apparently, the most popular strategies all involve the move Shell Smash, which is supposedly, one of the best boosting moves in the game. It boosts your attack, special attack, and speed by 2 stages each, and then lowers your defense and special defense by 1 stage each. So your special defense is already so slow that it can't be helped. You're going to die if you get hit with a powerful special attack either way, so who cares? And your defense is already so beastly that it doesn't matter that much that it's getting hit by 1.
Uh-huh.
And apparently it's best used and most used as sort of like a cleaner, coming in late in the match, late in the game, once you've already dealt with its weaknesses because you know you're going to have to, and you've already knocked out a lot of its team. You've already hit a lot of its team, so their HP's weakened. Enemy Pokemon are more vulnerable to being just swept. And also it's easier to avoid entry hazards, which really hurt Cloyster. It has the skill link, which is multiple moves that hit people multiple times. So if you can get it, Icicle Spear, stab with the Icicle Spear multiple times on a Pokemon that's already been whittled down a little bit, or use Rock Blast if the Pokemon's strong against ice, and bam, that's your strategy. I know that was kind of technical. Anyone who's looking for strategy is like, that was not at all technical.
But to the average person, it was. But yeah, it represents a lot about what these Pokemon would be like in reality, right?
Yeah.
They're versatile with a ton of defense. Yeah.
And if you like Cloyster and you're not competitive, but you imagine that your character has a Cloyster, it's worth it to think about, okay, so my character would probably be thinking about, all right, I'm going to use my Cloyster late in the match. And then, I don't know, I find looking at it in that lens makes it a little more fun and less dry.
I agree. Telling a story with it instead of just saying, oh, I have to do this because that's what the strategy says. Instead, it's like, this is what Cloyster likes to do, or this is their specialty, or it's just the narrative reason. Like, they're always there for me. They're the one who comes in and, saves the day at the end, to finish off the opponent. That's much more compelling to me as someone who prefers, the exploration parts of the series versus the mastery parts of the series. I like to be able to tell a story as I go, especially with such a repetitive combat system. Whew.
Yeah.
Man.
Yeah, I'm really interested in your trainer. We're going to have to do a trainer card or something soon.
Cool.
Yeah, I think it could be helpful, too, in ways that if you're not able to read all these Smogon articles and wrap your head around all this strategy, but you're committed to having a Cloyster on your team and you'd like to become a little bit better, then hopefully, just like with the shinies and the breeding, we're not giving you the actual, you do better to go read more about it, but hopefully we've at least given you some type of foundation to approach if you're not going to go any further. Be like, oh, okay, so I know I at least want to use the skill link ability and hit multiple times late in the game. That's anyone can wrap their head around that.
True.
No pun intended.
Nice.
So, speaking of trainer cards and personal teams, while I would love to get into yours, it's been a long time. We've got a lot of fans that have been listeners, I'd like to say, rather, that have been sending in their personal teams, and we haven't had the time. We've been recording late night episodes, and I haven't been able to really give them their due service, and I would love to take a look at another listener's personal Pokemon team, if you've got the time, sir.
Dude, that sounds awesome. I love hearing these segments and hearing other people's explorations of what their character would be like in the Pokemon world. that adds so much for me.
Perfect. So for anyone who hasn't been listening or who, listens sporadically, that's fine. I don't begrudge you. That's what I do with podcasts. We have lately been accepting submissions from our listeners and actually asking for submissions for our listeners for your personal Pokemon teams to discuss. Not what you use competitively in the game when you go to tournaments or whatever, but whatever that means to you, whether it's your personal fanfic team, your headcanon team, your what you would wish for if you could really wish for 6 Pokemon. No pressure to have a full 6 if you only have 4, or if it alternates, whatever, the general rule of thumb is no legendaries, but I don't want to discourage anyone from sending their team in. Whatever that question means to you, send it in. I love discussing it. I think fleshing out and talking about different people's personal teams is a great service to exploring the small areas of the Pokemon world, which then inform a greater understanding of the bigger prevalent things in the Pokemon world, like we do with the episode topics.
Totally, yeah. By zooming in on really small things, you kind of notice the scale of everything else and the implications that echo across all the other Pokemon species. It's really cool.
Everyday people are the soul of the Pokemon universe. It was a franchise designed where the main characters aren't Ash, aren't the main characters of the show and stuff, but they are you and your friends, and it was designed with that mentality. So these are the main characters. When we pause to do this at the end of the episode, what we're really doing is talking about the main characters of Pokemon.
Yes. This is a universe. There is a universe out there where this is the Grandmaster best Pokemon trainer ever.
Hell.
Which is really cool and like encouraging, I think.
Hell yeah. So today, we're looking at Superfan Merm's team. You've been listening for a while. You're super supportive, always sending us cool tidbits, pages from the anime that back up my beautiful, gorgeous mind and ideas. And we really appreciate it. As I've been saying, I love interacting with the listeners. I love making new friends. And that's what this show is all about. So thank you. And there's no better way to support the show than by liking and commenting on the posts on Facebook and Twitter and Reddit and wherever. So Superfan Merm sent in. I'm just gonna read the message, and I guess we'll talk about the Pokemon as we list through them. So
cool.
Quote unquote. So I determined I would be more into contests than anything, and my goal would probably be to just take photos of the Pokemon I come across or document them in my decks. Let's pause to discuss that.
I love
That's
that.
what we were just saying. There's a bigger world than just the people that want to fight. Everything's not about fighting.
Dude, totally. And I mean, as like kind of a, ethical pacifist or whatever, I love exploring the world without doing it harm. And, by capturing Pokemon, you're bettering their lives, generally speaking. Because you could view it as like you're kidnapping them or something. But I don't choose to see it that way. I think you're taking these Pokemon with you on a journey, like they're your friends, and by like chronicling them and getting better scientific evidence, that's amazing. That's awesome. I mean, taking pictures adds beauty to the world. I'm so with you. This is awesome.
Hell yeah. And taking, like, for anyone who listens to something like that and is like, that's lame. Well, if you had a friend that took really awesome photos, would you think that was lame? Like, Pokemon is a real world. Like, it's not lame.
Dude,
at all.
And if you're the most like bro-y Pokemon battler ever, you still want to have some sick pictures of your Pokemon flexing or whatever to put in, Musclemon magazine. Like,
and somebody's got to take those pictures. And
those pictures, you want a professional. You don't want to like have your mom take these pictures.
Also,
no offense, Mom.
Also, that's not saying that they don't battle at all. Like,
right.
She clearly is saying that's her focus, but that doesn't mean that every once in a while she's not like, oh yeah, sure, let's Pokemon battle. I haven't seen you in years. Man, let's see how
totally.
Let's see if your Snivy can still beat my Oshawott. I don't know.
And as discussed on this podcast many times, it's not like dog fighting or cockfighting or something. It's totally different in the Pokemon world.
Yeah.
And I wasn't trying to say I would never battle if I lived here. I'm just trying to say you can do so much good for the world by raising and training Pokemon.
Yeah.
In the Pokemon universe.
And
doesn't work in our reality so good.
You can be somebody that never plays sports that plays sports recreationally often, that plays sports all the fucking time, that plays sports professionally, that plays sports very rarely once a year. There's like, there's no like, yeah. So it's a wonderful,
Totally.
yeah. All right. Merm continues. My team of 6 would be Deden, who is always on my shoulder. What? There's no better place for a Deden, I'd have to say, except for my shoulder.
Aw, that's cute.
I fucking love Deden. That is an adorable, awesome Pokemon. It's my favorite, I think, of the electric rodents outside of Raichu and Pikachu.
I don't remember if I pitched this topic to you, but like I had an idea for one of your podcast episodes of being the kind of Pokemon that look like Pikachu series, because there's a ton of Pokemon that are very diverse that just kind of look like Pikachu.
Every generation introduces an electric rodent.
Whoa, what?
Yeah.
How did I never notice that before?
Yeah. Well, wait. Pachirisu's Ruby and Sapphire. Who is Gold and Silver's?
Yeah.
I know there is one.
Oh, man. Looking it up. Maybe it got cut. Maybe it was one of those from the leak.
Maybe they started on the right.
I don't know. Oh, Pichu. Duh.
Yeah. Does that still... Huh. Yeah.
It's Generation 2.
It is, but it's not a separate family. Still,
yeah, babies are weird.
Still, that counts. They introduced an electric rodent. Yeah, and then you got Emolga, Plusle and Minun, Deden, Togedemaru. Wow. Yeah. Hell yeah.
Oh my god, that's so cool. How did I not notice there's one every generation?
Yeah, that's why when people were making a big deal about it looking like too much like Raichu, I'm like, guys, you got to think of the context. That's the moral of this story today. Is think of the context before you react.
Right.
They continue Emolga, which, bam.
Hey.
Okay, they got a thing for electric rodents. I love Emolga, too. Emolga's one of my favorites. Deden and Emolga, are probably my 2 favorites.
I like that.
Oshawott, which I love Oshawott, but I don't really like the evolution of Oshawott that much. I don't hate it.
Yeah, I agree.
It's just...
really strong stage 1. I mean, basic.
It's like the tiger in the new game, Litten's evolution.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was hoping for something cooler out of Litten, something more to my personal tastes.
Right.
A Haxorus that was an Axew who was by my side since the day I was born. That's awesome too. I love a lot of people. If you ask who they're like, most people have this idea that they have a main signature companion, like their Pikachu. Mm-hmm. People will say their shoulder companion, their side companion, and it's usually the same as their starter Pokemon, their first Pokemon. But for certain people, it's not. And that's with my character. My first Pokemon is not my iconic, by my side Pokemon. So I appreciate that too.
I like that. That adds more complexity. Yeah, there's a lot more story there than just like, this is my main, That's cool. And Haxorus is so scary looking. I think that's really cool to have a close, like, I don't know, feeling really safe and protected by a kind of intimidating looking creature. It's pretty cool.
Yeah. Totally. And I think it's cool it gives your Pokemon all their own identity, because your best friend doesn't have to be your oldest friend, and it shouldn't be an affront to your oldest friend if they're not. Life works, life branches off. But like each of my Pokemon has something about them that makes them sort of like my most important Pokemon in a certain way. Like one of them is my by my side companion, who is like my best bud, my closest friend. Another one is my oldest friend. They were my first Pokemon, the first Pokemon that I ever had that was gifted to me. I don't know how deep I want to get into my team, because I plan on doing a whole episode about it. But like each one, I had a Kabutops on my team for the longest time, and that was a fossil that was given to me by my father before I ever even had a Pokemon. So in a way, that's my oldest Pokemon, but I didn't resurrect it until later in my story, so it actually isn't. But it has this strong familial connection, and it's, and I'm not going to go on, but each one has its way that almost makes it the most significant.
That's cool.
Pokemon to me,
and
yeah.
I think most people do something like that, even if it's just from a strategic standpoint, having like one Pokemon of each type or, dual types or whatever, having them all kind of cover different bases because they're all super clutch in certain contexts.
Yeah.
And yeah, but I don't know.
In an emotional context too, not just in battling.
Right.
But...
and you can see that it's more emotional than just strategic when two of them are the same type. It's like these Pokemon are both important to me. Like Deden and who was the other one? Emolga. Yeah, they're both obviously important because you don't necessarily strategically, you don't need both of them on your team. But the fact that they're both like, emotionally important means a lot, I think.
Yeah.
I think that's really cool. That's sweet.
Yeah, and it doesn't necessarily always place you at a disadvantage if generally you only play casual matches with your friends in your social network. You
can be totally hardcore about contests, Pokemon contests, and you don't have to worry about like the typing and the kind of thing that traditional like battlers have to worry about, which is cool. It's liberating.
Yeah, that's why I taught my roommate to play Magic, because now that way I don't have to go to a tournament. Nice. Just like, again, I don't need to win, but it's nice to have a fun challenge and not just lose. So like now with my roommate, who is very skilled, he has a great strategic mind, he understands how games work, so he's able to take a deck and pose a challenge to me, but he's not able to just be like, oh, I can look at your deck instantly and know what cards out of the 8 billion cards I've memorized I need to just add to my deck in order to always beat you on turn 5.
Totally, man. It's way more fun to be kind of scrappy and figuring it out as you go and trying new things and being emotionally invested in it instead of just being a cold, calculated killing machine. It's not quite as fun that way. There's not as much life there.
She continues. She has a Mega Audino who got stuck in its Mega form and can't revert back. That is cool. Part of me is like, no, that's power playing. What do you got, a legendary?
What about in contests, though?
Is your 6th one a legendary, Merm? But that's cool because you're presenting it as if it is a disadvantage. Just by the way you worded the sentence,
true.
You could just be trying to hack my brain and it's not a disadvantage. It's actually just an advantage in every respect and regard. But the way you say it got stuck in its mega form and can't revert back, almost... it presents it as a disadvantage, so I'm inclined to accept it. So again, like, you can frame your arguments in ways that will, even if they're still illogical, will make someone more inclined to accept them.
Plus, the mega form looks so cool. Like, I'm with you on that.
And maybe it's like in this constant, its body's constantly undergoing this adrenaline rush that isn't always healthy for it. Maybe it needs to eat more and consume more because it's a mega, like, this could clearly be at a disadvantage, or maybe its disposition is always anxious, fight or flight, or I don't know,
Yeah, you're right. There would be some major drawbacks from being in that hyper form all the time.
Yeah.
Totally.
So, okay, sure, I'll take it. I mean, I have similar aspects to my character that people, if I just told you what they were, people would be like, that's power playing. You can't do that. But
your lightsaber that you carry around?
Yeah, but you explain it in the context, like Luke Skywalker, he wasn't my real father, he just raised me.
Oh, man.
And the final member of Merm's team is a Stunfisk, which is, I gotta appreciate that, because Stunfisk is not very appreciated, and while I appreciate its like mythical and cultural influences, it's based on like an old Japanese cryptid sort of. I don't like it, and a lot of people don't like it. I do like it, but I don't have any personal appreciation for it. I like it because of its cultural context. I
respect that.
I respect that appreciate little underappreciated Pokemon.
Yeah. I like it from a meme standpoint. Like, it's got a good face for memes. But yeah, that's cool. I can see that being a real showstopper in a Pokemon contest. Like a battle of the most beautiful Pokemon, and here comes Stunfisk. Like, you gotta have some skill, or maybe be a little crazy to use a Stunfisk. But that's awesome.
Yeah. Wow. That's interesting. Yeah. Stunfisk is definitely an interesting one to throw into the contest. Oh,
Yeah.
Wow, and I wonder how the judges would react to seeing a mega in a contest.
In a contest? Yeah. See, I don't know if that's as, I don't know, like taboo or like against the rules or whatever as saying, I want to be the very best trainer. Battling using Mega gives you a clear advantage, but I don't know. Because if they're in Mega form, maybe they are a little bit like, twitchy, or maybe they're a little bit more on edge or nervous before their performance than a regular, normal stage Pokemon.
Yeah, and can you affect like a Mega evolution outside of battle? Probably. Because like, what if you're just out in the wild and you're like, it just drains your energy. I don't know. That's an interesting conversation too.
Yeah, that's a pretty ripe subject area. We'll actually probably talk about Megas when we get to the Slowpoke family.
That's right. When are we going to do that? I think next episode sounds like a good time.
All right, let's do it.
What better time? I can't wait. I look forward to having you back on to talk about one of my favorites.
Dude.
Slowpoke.
I love Slowpoke. I definitely do.
There's a Slowbro on my team. So I'll throw that nugget out there too. I've revealed more of my team in this episode than I have in any previous episode.
Wow.
Yeah, I love Slowbro. I think it's a great Pokemon. Got a great appreciation for it. And it's going to be a lot of fun discussing it in relation to everything we discussed over the last couple hours.
Yeah, it's a good companion episode to this one.
Where can people hear more of you and more of Amusement Sparks?
Okay. It's kind of a complicated thing. If you go to amusementsparks.com, that's probably the easiest place. If you want to find it on YouTube, which I do all of the podcasts as videos first, and then I just kind of cut the audio and make that into the podcast, the YouTube channel is called Kuyomi, Cuyomi, which that's a home for more stuff than just Amusement Sparks. That's why it's not just called Amusement Sparks. But I would recommend looking for that, Cuyomi on YouTube. Because if you just search for Amusement Sparks, it's going to be like, did you mean amusement parks?
Oh.
And even if you say no, there's still like 20 things before my videos start showing up. So it's
that is
amusementsparks.com.
So annoying. What if you type Amusement Sparks as one word? Does that work?
I think that it confuses it even more because they think you meant to hit the space bar, but you hit S.
Yeah.
I don't know. I haven't had much luck with it, so you can find it through Kuyomi or amusementsparks.com. Can't mess that up. It's also on Instagram. There's Kuyomi on Instagram and Twitter. There's Amusement Sparks on Twitter. Whew. Social media, man. It's important, but I don't know. It's kind of annoying sometimes, but when you get a connection from someone, it's like, this is totally worth it. It's so awesome.
Yeah. Check it out. Yeah. And if you can't find it, message us. You can find us, Silph Radio, on pretty much everything. Facebook, Reddit, all that. Silph Radio. Except for on Twitter, it's at Fairpoint Pod, simply because I don't need a million Twitter accounts. I do another podcast called Fairpoint Podcast. If you're not already a listener, what you should do right now is get a few episodes of Amusement Sparks, a few episodes of Fairpoint, and put together a playlist. Because
a playlist of going back and forth. I like that. Amusement Sparks also is family friendly, so if you need something to listen to in the car with your nieces and nephews or whatever, that would be a good time for Amusement Sparks. And then when you're with adults or whatever by yourself, that's a great time for Fair Enough or Fairpoint.
Thank you, man. I appreciate that.
Sure.
So yeah, please do whatever you can to support us, and please go check out Pretty Kitty Fuzzy. There's a Facebook page. Go like Pretty Kitty Fuzzy. We're so close to getting this game made. There's a Patreon. And I'm going to say, if you want to support Silph Radio monetarily at all, the way you can do that is by donating $1 to Pretty Kitty Fuzzy so that Antoine, repeat host of Silph Radio, can finish the game, get back on Silph Radio, have time to get back on Silph Radio, and get his name out there, and that'll help circulate Silph. It all comes around full circle. If you want to support our show, support Pretty Kitty Fuzzy. Also, it's a dope-ass game, and just by donating $1, you get, like, the game when it comes out.
It looks so awesome. I love the art style for that game. It's awesome. Well, I think it's going to be great. Donate a little bit more. You get an art book. You get a manga. Like, there's big plans, and he barely needs anything to get this finished. So, like, however you can support, even if you don't want to throw any money, just go hit like on the Facebook page. Dude, you won't even see the posts. Facebook doesn't show you posts unless you pay. So Yeah, kind of annoying for the page owners, but hey, for the audience, it's totally fine.
And that said, from the secret room, I'm Nathan K.
I'm Andrew Spohn.
It's been great talking to you. And we, both of us, will talk to you next time.
See you later.